How would you characterize the Q4 results you're announcing and the performance over the year?
I think the year for GlaxoSmithKline was a very good, productive year for the group across the board, actually. We saw good performances across all of our businesses, emerging markets, our consumer business, our American business coming back to strength again. At an underlying level, we reported 4% sales growth for the year, very much in line with what we've seen now for the last couple of years. Q4 was a little bit slower, but that was really due to some vaccine phasing issues, and we highlighted that we had higher vaccine sales earlier in the year, a little less in Q4 compared to the prior year. That's really what happened in Q4. And also for me, very excitingly during the year, it was a great year for R&D. As you know, one of the big focus points for us over the last 4 years has really been to re-energise our R&D organisation. And we saw some very good progress on that front. And we announced today we already have, this early in the year, 4 new products ready to file, with many more reporting more data later in the year. So overall, I think 2011 was a good year for GSK. It's certainly a year where I would say we are absolutely on track for our goals.
Your outlook for 2012 is notable because it is positive. Why are you confident?
For us, the headwinds that we faced for the last 4 or 5 years are diminishing, and we've been building more of our own tailwinds in terms of our R&D portfolio and the investment we've been making in our new growth businesses, like emerging markets, consumer, the vaccine business. And so we've been working hard to try and reposition the group for exactly this period that we knew would come, a period where many products in this sector are going off patent with other companies, a period where there is going to be inevitably more price pressure, but we've been strengthening ourselves to try and take advantage of that. You know, adversity isn't all downside for everybody. I think there's a real opportunity for companies who have strengthened themselves, changed their exposures to be in the places where the growth is. This is a time where we should feel optimistic, and certainly at GSK, we do feel optimistic. We feel like we're moving into a new era for the company, and we now need to focus on absolute disciplined execution to make sure that we take advantage of all of the opportunities that we've worked so hard to try and create for ourselves.
You've also announced a supplementary dividend on top of the regular dividend, on top of the 2.2 billion share buyback. What's the thinking behind a supplementary dividend, and is this a mechanism that we can expect to see going forward?
Let me show you a controlled trial. This is a rather famous controlled trial at this point. This is Study 329. It ended up being published. It's a trial of one of the SSRI drugs being given to children who are depressed. It's the article that you see here comes out in the journal with the highest impact factor in the field of child psychiatry. The authorship line on the article is an authorship line to die for. These are all the big names in the field. If people like this, in a journal like this, say that giving seroxat to children who are depressed is a good idea, most doctors reading this article will say, well, really, I should be making sure that every child who's remotely depressed gets put on this drug. 3 years before the article came out, however, GlaxoSmithKline, reviewing the data from the trial, internally in the company had decided that Study 329 shows that our drug, paroxetine, Paxil, seroxat, doesn't work. Not only that, but it's risky, and the data is so bad that we cannot show it to the FDA. They later worked out that they could show it to the FDA, and FDA wouldn't spot the problems, and they were right. But what were they going to do in the interim? They were going to pick out the good bits of the data and publish those. And that's what you've seen in the previous article. The good bits, the bits that suit the company, plucked out and published, with the bad bits airbrushed out of the picture. What you didn't see in the previous slide, the one that showed you the authorship line, was you didn't see the author of the article. You saw 22 names of people, none of whom were the authors of the article. The author of the article's Sahil Luthra, whom you see here, and here's an email from the company point person to her saying, I, who have seen the data, figure you've done an extraordinarily good job on hiding the problems, to the point where I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable here. I know that the investigators, the ones who were involved in the trial, but who haven't actually seen the data, haven't raised any issues. But even I have got to go back and make sure I feel comfortable with what you've done here. Right, now, how often does this happen? Well, let's have a look. I'm going to show you now the articles, the trials that brought the antidepressant group of drugs generally to the market. And here they are. These are a group of drugs that came on the market in the States and here. And these are the trials that the FDA saw before the drugs came in the market, the trials that led to the drugs being approved. And what you see on the upper half of the slide there are the positive publications of those trials. And you see also that there were 3 trials that were done that were negative, that had been published in journals where the authors and the company say that these trials show that our drug doesn't work. Now, we've got groups who are completely independent of the pharmaceutical companies, like the Cochrane review groups, whose brief it is to look at all the published evidence and work out, well, within the cardiac field or the respiratory field or the mental health field, what are the antidepressants you should take, what are the statins you should take, what are the asthma drugs you should take, and they review all of the evidence. They really hunt painstakingly to find, to make sure they've got all of the evidence, and based on that they come to a conclusion totally independent of what a particular company might say about their drug. They come to a conclusion about which drug they would give their husband or their wife or their children or whatever. And they suggest that if you're going to use an antidepressant, you should use the 1/3 from the right. You see the one that's got 2 boxes there, 61 and 62. This is sertraline, Lustrol, Zoloft. They say that this is the one that's got the best evidence for it. And here's their review of just that issue. This is the Cochrane group looking at all of the antidepressants and the published evidence in an article that appeared a few years ago in one of our major journals, the Lancet. Okay? But FDA got to see more trials than just the published trials that you've seen there. Okay? FDA, in fact, got to see all these trials. When you see all of the trials that were done, both the published trials and the unpublished trials, you see that actually close to half the trials of these antidepressants were negative. Not only that, but there's fewer white boxes up on top than there were in the previous slide. Why? Well, 1/3 of the previous slide's white boxes that the companies published as positive trials of their drug were, in FDA's view, negative trials of the drug. The ghostwriters have taken the trials and polished them to the point where a negative trial has become positive. Which of the antidepressants is the one that you should take now? And which is the one you should be least likely to take? Well, have a look at the 1/3 from the right. Sertraline, Zoloft. If you remember in the previous slide, there was 2 positive trials. Now there's only 1 positive trial out of 5. If there's an antidepressant you're going to take, Zoloft is the last one to take. It's the worst. Independent review of the literature is not going to save you from this. Unpublished trials are a problem. There's an even greater problem, which is published trials that are close to fraudulent. Now, I use the word fraudulent with care. Study 329 led New York State to take a fraud action against GlaxoSmithKline, which the company resolved.